Welcome back to Starbase, guys. This is Commander Doggo. I have a nice little surprise for you today. I just finished the T8 Mini. So what it is, it's a smaller version of an autonomous turret that I previously built, but this one is much smaller than the previous one that I made, and it uses less than half the voxel space, less than half the cables, less than half of most things. It doesn't look quite as nice. And it does have some pros and cons to make up for that size, because obviously the smaller it is, the less rangefinders, the less rotors I can fit in there. But it still does pretty good for its size. It's very efficient for the size that it is. And I've also added a new range mode, so you can actually adjust the laser range of how far it spots, which is new, and you have to make sure that you set the range before you turn it on, otherwise it's not going to do anything. And aside from that, it's exactly the same setup as the previous turret. If you're new to the channel, then I'll have a link in the top of the description to the setup guide for the big one. And basically it's the same setup as the big one, but you just have that added lever to adjust the rangefinder range that you need to do as well. But other than that, the setup is exactly the same. So the blueprints, it will be in the description, and so will the setup guide. And as usual, if you use a turret, you're free to use it however you want. However, if someone asks, just make sure you credit Commander Doggo on YouTube, and you can use it however you want. Okay, so for those who've been following the channel already, I'll show you the differences between this, the new turret, and the old one. So first off, I used a new technique to use a lot less rangefinders while still being able to keep up with high-speed targets. But it's not quite as good as the T8. It does miss targets sometimes. Sometimes if they're very fast and they're maneuvering, it does escape. Especially if your ship is sitting still. The ideal place to use these smaller versions is on a hauling ship where they're already moving at a high speed away from the opponent, because logically, if you think about it, when you're moving fast and moving away from your opponent, they have less room to maneuver because they need to move in a straighter line in order to catch up to your ship. So that's pretty much the only use for these auto turrets at the moment. You know, you can't really put them on a fast maneuvering battleship or fast maneuvering medium or small ship, but they're most useful for making getaways on hauling ships, so that's the ideal use for them. And aside from that, you could also put them on a strafing ship. I'm working on one experimental ship at the moment, and it's basically just like a jousting ship. It just goes straight through the battlefield in a straight line, and then it turns around and goes straight line backwards through the battlefield. And if you can have a ship that doesn't maneuver too hard, then that's where these turrets are most useful. Because obviously if your ship is maneuvering left, right, up, down, then the turrets will lose track more easily. Also, they're not as inertia resistant as the big one as well, because I couldn't fit as many turntables. They're still more resistant to inertia than your standard turret cradle, but they're not as resistant as the previous ones. And they do spin out of control if your ship is too fast maneuvering left, right, up, down, rolling. You know what maneuvering is. But it doesn't matter how fast you go in a straight line, you can go 150, no problems, and that's why they're best suited for hauling ships or a strafing ship. So that's it. I'll probably upgrade the turret in the future, because I did use a new method with the rangefinders, and I do think there's still potential to make it better. I could probably fit some more rangefinders in if I had to make the spotting a little bit better, and I could also add more modes as well, because I did experiment before with the big T8s, and I did want to make like a hover mode that kind of shoots into the sky only. That way the turrets avoid shooting at the ground all the time, because when you're fighting on the moon, the turrets tend to get stuck on the ground a lot with their aim. So yeah, there's several improvements I want to make in the future. This probably isn't the end of it, but I'm releasing the T8 Mini now just because I really want to focus on building ships and having fun, because I've been designing this for a while and I'm just a bit burnt out of making the auto turrets, so I'm going to be taking a break from them probably. I'll see how I feel. And yeah, hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.